Rebecca, we'll be seeing her again actually in a few weeks' time, because she's going to come on and help and support us around the E2W Wealthier theme. But in talking to her about that, the one thing that struck me is what a amazing, remarkable, interesting journey that Rebecca has had, from her childhood through university, early career, to a few years ago deciding to give all of that up, all of the career up, and pivot into a new area, which we'll come on to. So Rebecca, looking forward to this conversation. So when we were talking just now, we went right back to your childhood, and you were talking about, which I just can't believe, to be honest with you, you were talking about a shy girl.
Absolutely. No, I was a shy Methodist minister's daughter from Norfolk who always wanted to work in the city, and it felt so out of reach to some extent. But I did it, and I enjoyed it for many years.
Brilliant. So from that shy beginning, you took that big leap. You talked to me about tenacity and having a direction. You were a shy girl, but maths was in your heart, in your spirit somewhere. And you went off to university at Bristol. And how were your first days there? What was Bristol like? Because you're a country girl into the big city of Bristol. Tell us about your university.
Wow, Bristol was fun. Bristol was fab. But when you go there as a very shy 18-year-old, if you're going to read maths, they don't suggest that you've had a year out. So everybody had spent, the last year in full moon parties in Thailand, and I had just come from Suffolk, and it was daunting. Everyone seemed to know each other. They really didn't. They were just very good at giving that impression that everything was great and dandy and their social life was fantastic. But I soon settled in. I soon made friends, and those 3 years were over in a jiffy, really.
And then, with an honours degree in maths, decided to have your own little career break, and headed off to France.
Absolutely.
Sorry, gap year.
I had my gap year. I went to learn French. I hadn't done French at A-level. I'd always wanted just to go learn French, learn to ski, but I didn't have any financing behind me, so I had to work out a way of doing that myself. I found the most lucrative holiday job. Well, I was there with my brother. We worked 8 hours a day doing this photocopying for city law firms. And then we worked out that actually they would let us do 2 lots of 8 hours. And so we were there for 16 hours a day, making about £1,000 a week, which in those days was huge. It still is a lot of money. And that financed my year in France, which was half at university and half as an au pair. And my real plan was is I wanted to have a year out, but also I wanted to make my CV stand out. So when I actually was in France, I applied for lots of city jobs with a French, with a French stamp, with a, in those days where you did it all by letter, and it was just a way of making my letters stand out.
And they did, clearly.
And they did, yeah. I had quite a lot of interviews when I came back, and I came very close to one job, and then I called HR every week for about 6 weeks until another job came up. I think they just wanted me, they were just fed up of me harassing, and it really did show that if you want a job, you just go after it, softly, but I got there in the end.
So you got there in the end, and where was that? First Chicago?
That was at First National Bank of Chicago, yes.
Yep.
Which definitely shows my age.
Brilliant. So day one. What was day one at First National Chicago like?
Day one, well, my goodness me, hugely male environment. I was a bit more confident by then. And I remember my mum saying, just be careful, women in the city really shouldn't drink. People would take advantage of you. Day one, it was someone's birthday, 11:30, everybody was down the pub, and I had a glass of wine in my hand. It was okay, I survived, I did well there, but sadly our team closed after 15 months.
And then, so made redundant. That must have been a shock as well. It's been difficult. First job.
I didn't know anybody who'd been made redundant then, and it's hard not to take it personally, although I was very lucky I didn't have any children at the time and I only had myself to look after. But redundancy at whatever age is always a knock.
But picked up again and landed a role in short-term sales and trading at Barclays.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was through your network.
That was through my network. That was through clients that I had formed the relationships with, and they knew that there was a vacancy at Barclays. So actually, I was very lucky and managed to slot in there really quickly. And I was there for a couple of years until I moved on.
Good times?
Yeah, great times. Lots of business trips. Those were the days. Wining and dining clients in Australia.
On the beach?
Yeah, things we dream of now, yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. And then a really big step, and was leaving Barclays and moving on to Credit Suisse, where you spent 16 years.
This was a really exciting step. We did a team move. It was all very secret squirrel, lots of Sunday meetings. How are we going to organise it? And Credit Suisse, they poached 4 of us to go and set up a desk. So, and that was exciting. It was setting up our own business from, all right, we were in the structure of Credit Suisse, but we had to set up our own back office. We had to acquire clients. We had to build it up from nothing. And we did, and we built it up to a $20 million business.
And that's been a great experience. I mean, starting a business is always challenging, and you know, you have your good days, your bad days. It's a roller coaster. What energy did you draw on to get through those times?
It's exciting. You never know which way it's going to go. You've obviously got a business plan, but you don't really know. A business plan is only a guide, and actually, if you look back at your business plans, so very often they don't come to. They're not where you are in 5 years' time isn't often where you imagined. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. You have the expectations of some clients. You were let down, but then, you know, you found other clients. I love client acquisition. I love cold calling. You just never know how, you know, where it's going to go. You never know the results you're going to get.
Brilliant, brilliant. So 16 years there as well.
A long time.
A long time. Did the original team all stay together for 16 years?
No, a couple left off, and people went on to do various things, but, you know, it was a very, you know, banking changed an awful lot in 16 years. There were a lot of redundancies. There were, you know, Credit Suisse changed a lot, as did all the banks. Financing changed.
Yeah.
My role changed as well. It was the same desk, but the role changed. There were different opportunities available to me as well.
Okay, but you started, and you talked about getting involved in other areas of the business, with setting up women's networks and health structures. Tell us a little bit about what you did there, and what was the motivation for that?
I think a lot of the motivation was, by that stage I'd had 3 children. I had twins, and when I took 5 months off maternity leave, I then had another child 2 years later, and I took a year off because that was my option of, could I bear to be at home with, you know, did I want to be at home with 3 children, or did I want to go back? And I came back after a year. You know, it was hard, and it was really hard to come back from maternity leave, especially having been away for a year and being in sort of mummyhood for a year. It was so intense. But then after a while, you know, I got my clients back, I grew my client base again. And then I was looking for other opportunities, but my personal life was so busy that I didn't feel like I had enough energy to go and get a new job. And if I'd gone to get a new job, I would have been out all hours entertaining, and I just couldn't do that. So I decided to almost expand, you know, I expanded my role professionally as much as I could, but also personally, and I chaired the one of the subcommittees of the Women's Network, which is career and personal development, which, again, I mean, honestly, the relationships that I built within there were second to none. And a lot of people from Credit Suisse who I've remained in contact with are actually from the extracurricular than they were from the business. And it was a way that I felt like I could push myself whilst remaining in the same role.
Brilliant. So developing your career, developing your interests,
developing my skills,
variety as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And networking. I mean, networking is so important, internally, externally, everywhere, in the supermarket, everywhere.
Brilliant, brilliant. So let's just go back to the personal life, if we may. So you'd got married, and in 2006 you delivered 2 twins. Oh, the twins.
Yeah, the twins.
You know, that came as a shock. And just 5 months of maternity leave. How did you juggle, and how did you feel when you returned to work? Tell us about those 5 months.
5 months. 5 months were heaven, and it was crazy, but working in the city was good training ground for being a mother, because you were used to working really hard, you were used to not having any sleep. And for me, you know, it was heaven. But then walking back through the door of a big bank when you are expected to be on form, it was daunting. You know, confidence was low, to be honest.
Well, why? Because you know, you talked about your being a shy teenager. You're obviously not shy. You're full of confidence and everything like that. But 5 months maternity leave, and suddenly all of that confidence and, you know, that self-doubt returned. What tips would you give?
It's mindset. It's honestly mindset. In my mind, I thought the world had moved on so much in those 5 months, and I wouldn't have a clue, but actually it hadn't. I should have, and I did speak to a few colleagues, I should have done some of those keeping in touch days, but I didn't. Leaving 2 children was quite hard. And my advice to anybody would be, do those, go in, be visible. You know, even if you're doing Zoom call, I know at the moment it's hard, but, you know, when we go back to something, I think it's really important to stay a bit more in touch with your team.
So keep in touch. Keep
100%.
Lovely. So the twins came and then fell pregnant again and delivered Charlie in 2008. Went back to, had a year this time maternity leave. A short maternity leave or a long maternity leave? What's the advice?
Whatever's right for you. I would just say, don't decide. The reason I went back after 5 months was because I said I'd go back, and I didn't want to let anyone down, and I didn't want to pretend that I wasn't coping. I was coping, but I didn't want to sort of be perceived as wanting longer, or, you know, I don't know. It wasn't. For me, it was fine, but would I do it again? Probably not. And that was just something that I felt like I should have a short maternity leave. That was ridiculous. By the time I had my 3rd child, I was a bit wiser, and I thought whatever's right for me, ultimately. But keep in touch. I was very frank with my team, and I didn't say I was going back after 6 months and then make it later. I just kept it flexible, and I think that would be advice. Keep it flexible. Don't overpromise. Just leave yourself open to deciding. So,
getting on for 10 or so years after Charlie came into the world, suddenly make this big decision to pivot your career. What was the backdrop of that?
The backdrop was, I think it was when I had to, you know, I used to take my children to school once a year on the first day of term. Otherwise, I was at my desk. And I just started to think, almost like, why am I doing this? Are there any other options? And I would look at a lot of other people, and you always think everybody else has got it better, don't you? And I just thought, within my role, because my role was very much, you know, my workload was based heavily in the mornings, I knew that wasn't going to be possible, and I knew I needed to change, and I knew that I had to be brave and I was so in charge of my own life. I felt like when I went into a big organisation, I wasn't in charge there at all. So I just wanted something that I could control more. And I looked at friends who seemed to have the balance, and they've all had their own businesses. And so I left always thinking, I want to go into wealth management. I want to build my own business, and that's what I want to do. Not saying I did it straight away, and not saying I didn't think about anything else, but I just thought, I'm going to take the leap here. I managed to get redundancy, which gave me a financial buffer just to make that leap. And I wouldn't advise, you know, I was brave. I wouldn't normally advise giving up a job before you got another one, especially at the moment, because it's tricky.
Just before we go on to the financial planning, what were the other options you looked at? What were the other?
So I was looking, there was so, I mean, you can't help but when I was not working, I was organising Christmas fairs, and there were these people, I saw the numbers, they had these incredible businesses going to the Christmas fairs, face to face with clients, but the reality was, you know, that was, you know, they did the fairs in December and the summer. Did I want my own, you know, platform basically sitting in a spare room packaging up goods, which is what it would be? No, I didn't. I was fighting finance as well. I thought, is this my chance to get away from finance? Is finance boring? Is finance, can I do something else? I've had 20 years in finance. And actually, I came, you know, I thought about this, I thought about the wealth management, I did a full circle, and I came back to it. I almost just had to discount everything else that I thought about.
Brilliant. So, made the decision, financial planning. How did you then decide and take the route that you did to St James's Place? What were the other options? What did you have to do, and how daunting was those early decisions?
The early decisions were, no, I enjoy being a mother. I did a lot of charity work, and which I would say, if you are not working for whichever reason, doing charity work, whichever aspect, is really, really important. For those reasons, being out of work, you know, and I know how I felt when I went back after maternity leave, and I'm, you know, busy, but I think it's really important just to keep your skills up and acquire new skills as well. Almost the moment I was at home, I was asked to chair the Parents Teachers Association. I had to give speeches in front of 500 people in church, scare the living daylights out of me, but it forced me to do it. I was chairing meetings of 50 people. I was used to doing 20 beforehand, but 50 was daunting, but it was pushing, and it was pushing me. I was acquiring new skills, and my confidence was there, and I managed to keep that confidence. And I would say, and also it's a form of networking too. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know who they know. And, you know, link into their profiles as well. And if there's something, you know, they might know somebody you want to know, just be brazen and just ask to be introduced. You have got nothing to lose. People like to help other people. You're not asking them for a job, you're just asking them for advice. So then I decided, right, I needed to go back to work. I could not afford to be at home anymore, and I wanted to. I was scared that my children were growing up, the empty nest, and I needed to future-proof myself against, you know, sadly you see so many women who are in their 50s, I'm not in my 50s yet, who are and they're lost. They don't know where to go, and I really didn't want that to happen to me. So St James's Place, I was a client at St James's Place. I knew how it worked. They run an academy so you can retrain. You're 6 months in the classroom, and then you are in transition and you set up your own business. So I went to a women's returners event, which women's returners are, you know, they're really good at holding events with different businesses. And the penny dropped that it was now I wanted to do it, and I think I was the only person in the room who asked questions. I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated by these women's journeys, how they were building up their business. I wanted to do it. I then went to another couple of St James's Place engagement evenings, and again, you just know, I was just like, this is what I want to do. So it was daunting doing all of, you know, I think I had 4 interviews, writing a business plan, and I started, and it was incredible. It was a really amazing 6 months, lots of exams, and it was, you know, for me, I chose financial planning because it was the best of my old job, which was the client relationship, the client acquisition, finance, which I love finance. I understand finance. And I think for me, financial planning is personal finances are so misunderstood. So many people just don't give any time to it. They just live for now. And you know, a couple of my prospects are women in their 60s who want to retire. And I say to them, oh, so, you know, great, let's talk about the numbers. How are you going to afford that? Oh, I've got some pension statements. I don't think I've opened them for 20 years. Like, you know, focus. Retirement. People are living longer. Retirement could potentially be 30 years. You need to focus on these. So I felt like by retraining, I could definitely add value to people and help them understand their finances and not be afraid of them.
And in terms of your client base now, is it what's the mixture between men and women, and or husbands and wives if you're getting together? And you know, we've had people. Oh, I think we've lost you.
No.
Hello? No, you're still there. Sorry. Okay. What people often have spoken about sort of women, particularly wives, taking a back seat in terms of financial planning. What's your observations and your advice?
I think that's so true. And I think, in fact, my LinkedIn last week was talking about that, and it was talking about divorcing couples as well. And many people just, they think the finances is a blue job. They don't understand it. And I think it goes back to finance equals numbers equals math. And a lot of people don't like it. And they just feel like it's too complicated to understand. And when I see clients, when I see couples, I make sure that I engage both of them. And my clients so far, it has been both of them, but I do make it my mission that if it is, say, the man or the woman, whichever one, if the other person can't come to the meeting, and actually Zoom meetings, it does make it a lot easier, both people can come, it's to engage the other person, just to protect them, to know what the plans are, to know how much money they have. It stops, hopefully it might stop overspending, but it's education. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my job is education.
Brilliant. Rebecca, before we open it up to questions from our friends on the call here, is there anything else you'd like to say or add? Is there anything that I've missed out? It's been a fascinating journey.
I'd say whatever you do, honestly, be brave. Sometimes you do, and be strategic as well. If there's people that you want to know, work out where they hang out. It sounds a bit stalky, and when we're a bit freer, work out ways to get to know them. I've called so many people that I don't really know for advice, and generally people are really happy to give you advice. People are really happy to, if someone said, oh, can you introduce me to so-and-so, I see that you know them. Yeah, of course I can. You know, people are happy to facilitate. They can't necessarily give you a job, but they can really, you know, they can help facilitate you broadening your network, and getting, the more people you know, the more chances and the more options that you have.
Brilliant. Rebecca, thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's amazing. I'm going to open it up now to questions. So raise your hand, wave at me, do something to say you'd like to ask a question, and I can only see a couple of screens. So do we have any questions? Come on, Gabby. You need to.
Just a very quick one. What product did you set up on the new desk?
Sorry?
What product did you set up when you set up your new desk? What were you selling?
At Credit Suisse?
Yeah.
I was doing commercial paper, CDs, all short end interest rate products. So floating rate notes, short end bonds, etc., corporate and govy bonds.
Cool. Thanks.
Brilliant. Hi, Millie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
Good. You look as if you've moved back to London.
I am back in London, yes. So slightly less good lighting than I had before.
But a very impressive spirits show behind you.
Thank you. I do try. I've got a question for Rebecca about the St. James's Place course. I'd not really heard anything about them before, but it sounds really interesting. Could you tell me a little bit more about what they do and what your experience was with them?
So the St. James's Place Academy?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 6 months, and it's quite a tough selection process to get onto it. So a lot of interviews and doing your business plan. And then you start in the classroom, there were 22 of us. And it was, I love the formal training. So the first 3 months were very much exam based. In order to get your diploma in financial planning, you have to do 6 exams. You take the first 5 in sort of first 3 or 4 months, which again, don't be afraid of exams. Exams are, the first one I took, I was really scared and I was really daunted. I hadn't done one for a while, but actually it gave my brain such a workout. And then it is learning all about products, learning about the products as James's place, learning about why people financial plan, you know, the different scenarios and also the different personality types as well. There's some people who just will not invest any money ever. There's some people who want to be kamikaze and it's just reining them in. Some people want to be uber active. Maybe they allocate themselves a trading account where they can go and pick and stock pick, but actually their ISAs, etc., they keep that, you know, their trading account is not the majority of their money. It was really fascinating and I'd really happily talk to you offline about it more, but I loved it and I felt like it was really, really good formal training in order to then go and launch my business.
Yeah, I'd love that. I think Mark will probably know more of the context, but I think it'd be really good to kind of have a chat with you at some point. Just
yeah, very welcome to.
Thank you.
Millie, I'll link you in. Basola, you have your hand up. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. So the question I have is, Rebecca, you have your clientele. Do you mostly work with women or do you work with men and women? And then when you have a new client, what are the areas you look at?
My business went live on the 30th of March 2020. So I'm building my client base at the moment. Having thought I would work mostly with women, it seems to be half and half at the moment. And the process that I have with my clients is very much when you're deciding which financial planner you work, there has to be a personality match. It's got to be somebody that you can. For me, it's got to be somebody who's going to listen to me and going to respect my advice. And then on the other side, for a client, it's got to be somebody who you trust, somebody who you feel like is going to give you the best possible advice and understands you. You know, who's not going to say, why are you spending 200 quid a month on shoes? Why are you doing that? Which I think a lot of women often work better with female financial planners. There's a lot of emotion tied up in money as well. Incredible. So I sit down with clients and literally we do a complete brain dump of their finances, their assets, liabilities, protection, all the policies that they've got in place. What's under the bed unopened? Let's open it up and let's have a look. Let's see what is there. And then plan for their future. What do they want are they looking to buy a house? Are they looking to send kids to private school? Are they focusing on retirement? When they want to retire? How much money they want in retirement? What kind of lifestyle they want? What are their expectations? Have they got any other forms of money? Are they going to change jobs? Are they going to lose their job? All of these things. And I can model you can look and say, oh, if I was to save £500 a month, that means I could potentially retire earlier. If I want that £500 now, maybe I will save £300 a month. It means I can't retire until X date, for example. There's an awful lot to look at. And yeah, to check that a lot of clients have moved from employed work to then self-employed work. And if you're in an employed job, you don't realise how many benefits you get. The pensions, the insurance, the income protection. There's a huge amount that you get. And when you go self-employed, you don't get that. That's a lot of the people that I'm talking to too.
Okay.
But men and women. And I'm passionate about having both parties, as I said, in the meeting or at least engaged.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Basola. Loved it. Loved it. You've changed your wall. Have you painted your wallpaper, or have you moved to another room?
I'm in a different room in the house this time. Hi Rebecca, really interesting to hear your journey. Fascinating. So I have a question. So when you're establishing your business, how do you establish your credibility amongst your clients, and how do you start gaining those first clients? Is it really through your network?
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't like asking my friends for business. I just find that really cringy. And James is paid to tell me off for that. I find that cringy. But I tell my friends what I'm doing. And actually part of my journey, before I joined St. James's Place, I spoke to my friends about it to ask them what they thought. For the reason I wanted to check that they thought I was making the right decision. And I spoke to friends and ex-colleagues, so people who knew me in different aspects of my life. And yeah, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to do this and then give it up after a year, that they believed that I could do it. And we would have frank conversations, and that's what I wanted. But also I was sowing the seed in their heads that that's what I was going to be doing a year later. And I'm going to be building my business, and I'm going to be looking for clients. So how have I found my clients? I've got some professional introducers. I'm working with an accountant. I'm working with a lawyer. I'm a member of quite a few networks, and it's amazing how when you become self-employed, the referral process, and it's something that I never appreciated now. But if I see for example, on one of my Facebook pages, somebody looking for a French tutor in Clapham, I know a really good French tutor in Clapham. My God, am I going to recommend? And I'm going to recommend, and then I just hope people will recommend me back. And you build your credibility. You build your credibility slowly, and making sure that you do a good job with whichever clients you have, no matter how small, no matter how big or how small a client is, you do a big job, and reputation sells you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Zena.
Hi, Rebecca. I just have a question in terms of when you decided to pivot your career. You said it was the work-life balance. You wanted a better work-life balance, but was it the only reason, or you felt like, oh, maybe this career is not very suitable to me, I can find something else that...
I've been doing it for a long time, and I need it. And I could have looked for something else internally. I really could have done. And I did think about if I wanted to, wealth management, Credit Suisse, or obviously one of the biggest wealth managers. I wanted to work for myself. I knew that I wanted to make that leap and take that jump. But now I do work for myself. I have such admiration for anybody who's got their own business. Well, Mark, it's a massive jump. It's a massive leap of faith, and it takes a while to build up. And if you are employed, never underestimate the regularity, just having your salary paid into your account every single month. And it might not be as much as you want, but knowing you've got a set amount every single month is a massive form of security. Now, in some ways I work longer hours now than I did before, but it's strange times at the moment, but it's just more flexible. And that's what I needed.
Thank you. Thank you, Zena. Funto, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Mark?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well.
Yes, I wanted to ask Rebecca, in terms of kind of accepting clients, do you have a certain criteria or a baseline before you accept a client?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Some people do, but I don't. All I would say is they generally have to have a cash positive balance. If there are clients with lots of debt, I can signpost them to the right, some debt help agencies, etc. But I would just say a net positive balance.
Okay.
And it really does. People think, oh, in order to I need lots of money to financial plan. You really don't. And this is supposed to be about my career change rather than career, but actually just to say that there's been so many surveys done. I think Royal London produced one recently that it's actually those who are on the just getting by who benefit more from financial planning than those that are uber wealthy, because they've got to be cleverer with their money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Liz.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, really good. Really, really insightful session. So thank you very much, Rebecca. It's been really good to listen to your story and how you've got to where you are now. really interested to understand, obviously it's really uncertain times at the moment. Have you found that has actually impacted kind of your client base? Maybe you've got bigger, you've seen more people kind of approach you, because obviously, you know, in terms of uncertainty, this is when people want to financially plan more. So really interested to understand kind of how this economic downturn and the situation that we have at the moment has really impacted business for you, and as someone who's kind of, you know, employed, you're self-employed, is that any concern for you, and how you can kind of navigate your way through this situation at the moment?
I think, you know, generally, yeah, obviously really uncertain times, and you know, the last 6 months have really made people assess their personal and their business vulnerabilities. So there has definitely been an upturn in the amount of protection that people are taking, thinking, actually, if I was to become ill, if I was to have an accident, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to look after, you know, how am I going to have any money to live? There's been a massive upturn in protection. Regarding investments, now I always recommend to my clients that they have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in their account before they invest any money. And at the moment, I would say it's at least, my recommendation would change to be at least 6 months, because you just, even if you've got the most secure job in the world, you just don't know what is around the corner.
Yeah.
And to trickle your money into the markets rather than investing in lump sums, because again, we just don't know, we can't call it. But at the same time, you know, there are still the tax advantages for the pensions, which, yeah, they may get rid of in the autumn budget. You know, there's still advantages to be had, and potentially a sort of a timing on that you should make the most of now rather than waiting. And also still focus on your long term. If you're thinking, you know, it's very easy to think, oh, I should be jumping into the markets, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. It's just like, it's focus on your long term. What are you wanting to do with that money? Are you wanting to buy a house? Are you wanting to buy a car? Or is it for retirement? Focus on your true values, and don't get swayed by the headlines for the majority of your money.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And do your wills as well. There's been an upturn. I don't do wills, but I do. I think we're all much more aware of our mortality, and talk to your parents about money too, and not to say, oh, I want your money, but just to look after your family too. And I think families have definitely become a lot closer in this time because we can't see them, and it's have those conversations with them. And so, you know, maybe this is being stereotypical, but maybe your father was always in charge of the money and your mother doesn't really know what's going on. Make sure she's engaged with it if your parents are still alive. Make sure they've got wills, and just make sure they know where everything is. Yeah. Just be aware. Don't bury it under the carpet.
Those of you that met my mother a few weeks ago will know that she is totally in charge of the money. Totally in charge of the money. Rebecca, thank you so much. We're going to draw to a close now. We'll see you all next week. Another session on Wealthier around property management. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much for joining today. It's been brilliant. Rebecca, thank you again. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.